Standing in My Truth, the All About You show. Today it's all about you. So to everyone out there, at what time is it? 7:30? Forget EastEnders, forget all the other soaps. Grab yourself a coffee, a tea, a drink, kick back, and let's talk about the school system, because I know that there's a lot of parents out there that is going to be able to relate to you today. Manny, thank you. Welcome. Please introduce yourself to Cyberworld.
So, thank you. You've already given me such a great introduction already. I'm going to add to that. So, I'm a primary school teacher. First and foremost, I'm a husband and a father. But yeah, I'm a primary school teacher. I'm also a Senko in a specialist school for children with social, emotional, mental health issues, and that's an all-through school. So our students start from the age of about 5 till 16. On top of that, I'm a school governor, and I also run a charity project called the Reach Out Project, and I'm also a member of a podcast on YouTube called The Good Man Factory.
Okay, don't go too far, because I'm going to be asking you about all of those things that you've just said. Now, first of all, what area are you from?
East London, from East Ham in Newham.
Ah, you're an East London boy. Hey.
Yeah, it's funny actually, because most of my well, not most of my childhood, but up until the age of 10, I was actually raised in Bermondsey in South East London.
Oh really? Boo! Sorry to all the South Londoners.
I was raised in Bermondsey, and then in year 5, I was excluded from school, and then my family decided to move to East London, and then I started a new school in year 6 in East Ham.
Okay, let's do a rewind. Let's just do a rewind, because now, school teacher and excluded, those two don't mix. So how about let's feed the public here. So you lived in Bermondsey.
Yep.
And you got excluded from school. So are you saying that you were a problem child?
I'm saying that there were many different things that contributed, I think, to my negative experience at school. So Bermondsey, for those who don't know, I don't know how it is now, traditionally quite a racist area.
Yes.
If you look at the football, Millwall football team. So I lived maybe 10 minutes away from there, and the area that I lived in at the time was quite a toxic environment. We were literally advised on certain weekends to not go out because the National Front would march. I think now they probably call it the BNP, but the National Front would march on the weekend on Jamaica Road, and we were advised to stay in our homes. So that kind of tells you a little bit about how Bermondsey was back in the 90s. So the school that I went to, many of the children of these people that were on these marches were people that I went to school with, and anyway, long story relatively short, I struggled through that schooling experience. I was maybe one of, I don't know, a rough number, 15 maybe black students within the school, and I just suffered lots of microaggressions from pretty early, from nursery up until year 5, when I was eventually kicked out. And to be fair, it wasn't just me that I think suffered from that school experience. I think my family did as well. Even at a young age, I could tell from my parents' reaction and things that they would say that they themselves were kind of a bit relieved that I was finally leaving the school, because they themselves had experienced microaggressions from certain staff members. Even the head teacher had been particularly quite rude towards my dad.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Your parents were they from Bermondsey originally? Where did they come from, your parents?
So my parents are from Nigeria. I'm first generation. So my parents were both born in Nigeria, 2 different states. We're part of the Yoruba tribe.
Okay.
And they moved here in the 80s, and I'm the first of their 3 children, so I'm the eldest.
Oh, okay. So you got brothers, all brothers or sisters?
Younger brother and a younger sister.
Oh God, right, okay.
Younger brother and a younger sister, and and they didn't go to the same primary school as me, partly because of the experience that I was having. So my parents, they had them somewhere else until I finally left. So, but I think that played a part in it. My parents being Um, my parents not really understanding how the education system worked, I think, played a massive part in how things went on. I don't think they necessarily knew the right questions to ask. They wasn't really too sure what was right, what was wrong.
Yeah.
But when they did see something that was wrong, they would challenge it, and they were often kind of met with resistance. And so they kind of struggled in trying to engage with the school anyway.
Right.
So that was quite a negative experience for all of us. But to answer your question, I wasn't a goody two shoes by any means. I was, cheeky, humorous, probably talked a lot in lessons. But I wasn't a particularly bad child. I wasn't, violent towards.
You were a child. You were a child, basically. Yeah.
Some hit me, I hit them back. That's just how it went in school.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was, particularly bad or a little demon or devil. But I was made to feel like that by the time I left primary school. So.
Because by the time you left primary school, I guess you were labelled. Is that correct? It's like, because teachers tend to do that, right? And it sticks with you. It doesn't matter what you do. Just that word, and which I always say, which I'm going to come to a lot of things that you do say, and I think it's very powerful. Words are very powerful. People tend to forget that. Certain words are triggers. People tend to forget that. So, it's how you say it that leaves that lasting effect. So here you are, you've moved on from that primary school, and you've moved down to East London. You've come to East London. But was it any better? How was the schooling then? Because I want to go right, straight into to bring you where you are today. So you've come into East London. What was school like then? Was your parents able to cope better?
Yeah, school life was better for me. So when I got kicked out from that school in Bermondsey, I was in year 5, and it was towards the end of year 5. So I actually spent the maybe last 2 or 3 months of that year at home, and then we moved to East London in that summer, and I was enrolled into a school in East Ham, and I'll say the school's name because it was a great school called Vicarage Primary School in East Ham. And so I only was able to spend 1 year there, which was I can't really call it a regret. I didn't really have much choice in that, but if I could have spent longer there, I think I would have had a lot more pleasant memories of primary. So my last year of primary school in that school was amazing. I made lifelong friends. I'm 30 now. There's friends that I met when I was 10, 11, and I'm still friends with them now. Literally just spoke to some of them in a group chat. Just the teachers were nice. The environment was nice. I don't know if it has anything to do with the fact that the previous school was a Roman Catholic school, or if it was just the fact that it was a school in the center of a very racist area in a very racist neighborhood. I don't know, combination of different things, but either way, it was a lot better for me. And funny enough, when I was in my old primary school, so my first name's actually Oluwaseun.
Oh yes.
But when it was on the register in my old school, they believed it was a mistake, and because they had made me feel so uncomfortable about how my name would be pronounced or said, when they made the mistake a number of times and said, "Oh, Sean, it must be Sean," they changed the U to an A. I just said, "Cool, that's fine." I ran with that. So my actual first name never really got acknowledged in my first primary school. So I used to get called Sean. So anyone that meets me now that knew me when I was, 7, 8, 9, they'd come up to me and say, Sean, Sean, Sean. And so when I started my new primary school, I think just to kind of get rid of that negative experience that I had there, I said, I'd like to be called Emmanuel, and that's my middle name. And so, ever since then, I've always gone by the name Emmanuel or Manny. Still proud of my first name.
I was going to say, that's horrible though. Do you know what I mean? Having to change. Everyone has pet names, but it wasn't even a pet name. It was like your name was actually just taken away from you.
Yeah, I just had a new identity. Funny story about that. I was walking in, I was with my partner, maybe in my early 20s, and we were walking in Stratford, and a girl started walking up to me, and she was saying, Sean, Sean, Sean. And I didn't recognize the girl. And my partner's looking at me like, why is there another girl calling you Sean? Like, what kind of alias have you been giving other girls? And she's like, Sean, Sean, Sean. I was like, huh? And she's like, it's Sade. And then I realized it was one of my very, very good family friends from when I was in primary school. And they obviously knew me as Sean.
Right.
And she'd, 10, 12, 13 years later, in Stratford. So that was quite a funny story because many people wouldn't know that that's my name.
Yeah. I tell you what, I really do identify with you, and is that only because I used to be called, people wouldn't call me Maxfield, it was Maxwell House Coffee, and so because of the Max, right, and so it was like rather than call me Maxfield, it was Maxwell House Coffee, and people and I kept thinking, my name's Maxfield. Why do you keep calling me Maxwell or Max? My name's Valerie actually, but I never got called Valerie. It was like Max or Maxfield. Even now, people still do it.
Yeah.
Do you know? So I totally understand what you mean. Probably a bit different to you, but there you go.
Yeah, but your name is your identity.
It really is.
Part of your identity.
Yeah, and it did have a slight effect. I was thinking, are you just doing that on purpose? Are you, is that, it could be a form of bullying because you do know what my name is, but even the teacher did that as well. So it was just, it wasn't nice. So I get that.
Yeah.
So okay, so you've come out of the primary school, but from where I read, you studied, but you still did not know where you are. You didn't know what you wanted to do. And you've gone into secondary school. Did you still not know where you stood as, a young black man in a school system, not being pushed, not being given you any identity, a path? How did you deal with all of that?
I guess the short answer to that is no. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I knew what I was good at. I knew what I loved and liked, but I didn't leave school. I didn't leave secondary school having like a clear understanding of where I was going to go, or what I was going to do, even in terms of just like A levels, let alone university or my career. So I, like any other 10, 11, 12-year-old, I loved football, obsessed with football. So if you'd asked me at the age of 11, 12, I would have said to you, I want to be a footballer.
I thought so. I thought you'd say that.
Exactly. Very quickly in school, I realised that I was good, but not at the standard that, I might be playing for the district teams or whatever. So I played at a very good level in school, but even I could understand that, wanting to be a footballer might not necessarily be realistic, but I still love football nonetheless. But one of the passions that I discovered for myself in maybe like year 9, year 10 was writing and drama.
Okay.
So they were two I was particularly good at, and I was fortunate that I had a teacher called Miss Spong. I recently wrote an article on Guardian actually where I was giving her a bit of a shout out, and
I'm coming to that. Don't give out too much information.
I won't. But yeah, so she basically cultivated my skills and really kind of lit a flame up my backside and just had me, doing things I didn't think I would be doing, writing stories, creating poetry, and these were things I was genuinely proud of, things that, I was proud to take home. So I knew what I loved to do and what I wanted to do in school, but still it wasn't enough for me to think I was going to be older and be an actor, I just generally didn't know, and obviously I didn't leave school with the qualifications to do many things. I left with only 4 ATC GCSEs as a result of my second exclusion.
Right, so you got excluded the second time, but even within that exclusion, you were still able to go to university though, weren't you?
Yeah, so university is a funny one. So basically, I got excluded in, I think towards the end of year 10 with my best friend at the time. He passed away a number of years after. And
sorry to hear that.
No, it's fine. So we got excluded, and what happened was, after a period of time doing that exclusion, it was like a fixed term exclusion. The decision was kind of like, reversed in that they brought us back to school, but we was now doing internal exclusion. So we weren't going to many of our GCSE subjects. So we were kind of just put in isolation where they were then, we had maybe a teaching assistant or a mentor teaching us these subjects. And if our work was coursework, then we would just be given our coursework and then kind of given notes and a bit of help to kind of sort out our coursework to at least get some GCSEs. So as a result, I left with only 4 A to C GCSEs. So when I got to college, I couldn't do A levels because I didn't have my maths GCSE. I only had English and I only had science. And science I only got from the skin of my teeth, by the skin of my teeth, because my science teacher, although I wasn't in his lessons, he pretty much kind of gave us the answers. I'm sure it's many years after now. I don't think you can get into it, but he gave us the answers because it was coursework. We weren't setting exams for that. So he gave us the work to allow us to qualify at least to get our 2C.
Yeah.
Because for that, I would have left with maybe only 2 C's in English.
Right.
So anyway, I couldn't do my A levels. Because I didn't have 5 A to C GCSEs in English, maths and science. So I spent a year in college doing I think I did a BTEC media course.
Right.
I did a critical
Thank God for BTEC, right?
Yeah, I did a BTEC media course, critical skills course, and I was doing my maths GCSE in that year. So it was kind of almost like a filler period of time for me to get what I need to get to then do my A levels in the second year of that college.
Right.
What that meant was that when I was going into my second year of college, when I was going into my first year of A levels, all of my peers that I'd left school with were in their second year of A levels.
Yeah.
So
they're far ahead. They've gone ahead of you.
Basically, yeah. So my cohort were, the brand new cohort that had just started their A levels, and I was joining them after spending a year already doing my maths. But I don't really have any regrets in that, because I think everything happens for a reason. My best friend now, funny enough, I met in that cohort. He was my best man at my wedding. He's my daughter's godfather. So despite the negatives around certain situations, I always kind of look at the silver lining in that. And so what that also meant was that when I finally finished my A levels, again scraped through, because going into my second year of college, but my first year of A level, my best friend who I had been excluded with in year 10 tragically passed away in a car accident.
Oh God, Manny.
He passed away with 2 other friends, and there was 5 of them in the car at the time. 3 of them passed away, 2 of them survived, and the 2 that survived were actually brothers. So we all went to the same school, we lived on the same road, so it was a massive.
It's a life changer.
Yeah, changed my life.
Oh my God.
And so that was the summer going into my first year of A level, and the first 5 months of that period of time for A levels just went out the window. I wasn't attending. I was going through depression. I broke up with my girlfriend at the time, just because having that kind of toxic male kind of mentality. I just thought she couldn't help me, so I just kind of like dumped her. Something I massively regret, just because of the way I dealt with that situation. But I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't deal with it, and
you didn't reach out to anyone, did you? Did you reach out? You didn't reach out to anyone, did you?
No, I didn't reach out to anyone, but I was fortunate enough that because it was still quite close after when I had left secondary school, many of my friends from secondary school, we were still all in contact, as in we lived in the same neighborhood, we were always seeing each other anyway. So it brought us closer together.
Right.
So in that period of time, we were pretty much together almost every day for a good number of weeks. In some ways, it was a little bit, what's the word? It wasn't the best thing in some ways, because we were in each other's depression and anxiety and toxicness. We were doing that with each other for like days on end, and we'd meet every night, and we were meeting at the spot in which they passed away. So although there was comfort in us being together,
it was still bringing you down. It was still taking you down.
Positivity, we weren't really kind of like being positive outlets towards each other. I think we were just glad that we had each other in the physical space, if that makes sense. So yeah, anyway, that basically contributed to my not so great first year of A levels. I had some teachers that were fortunate enough to, they understood what had gone on. I think someone broke it down to my dad. My dad wasn't actually aware until I think January or February when we had our parents' evening. He wasn't aware that I was even skipping college or not going. They told him, it was like, as it stands now, he's on course to fail this year ridiculously. Like, he's not engaged in A levels, in his A levels, he's not participating. So it was actually there at the parents' evening.
How was your father taking all of this, though? How was your family dealing with all of that? You know, what was that like? Because, you know, come on.
Yeah, that was a touchy subject because in terms of having people to reach out to and go to, it wasn't my family, unfortunately. I had a particular moment where I did reach out to someone in my family. I say reach out. They approached me when they could see that I wasn't really like getting better. I was really in a bad place, and this was a number of weeks after it had happened. And when I shared that, you know, I just can't cope. Like, I feel like I'm stuck. You know, I was having nightmares where I was seeing my best friend in my dreams constantly, like almost every night. And I remember kind of sharing that briefly, and the response I got was kind of like, you know, people die. How are you still dealing with this now? Like, you gotta move on. You know.
Oh God. Okay.
So it wasn't the best response that I got, and that kind of led to a lot of my issues, I think, with opening up, particularly around traumatic experiences that I had. And I kind of brought that into my relationship. So, you know, there was a lot of work that had to be done with myself to kind of just like,
let me work on myself here if I need to get better. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and my wife, you know, who was my girlfriend at the time when we met, I think I was about 21, 22, she was really good in kind of like getting me to understand that communication is key. But I didn't have that kind of level of support when I was going through it. So when my dad was aware that, you know, this was impacting my results, I think he realized that, oh, this is really, really a big deal. And again, I think that's another issue within the black community, that I don't think we necessarily take mental health seriously. I think we are now, but in certain subcultures of the black community, mental health I just don't think exists. But it just goes to show that where they've come from and in their time they've had to deal with things, and they probably feel like they are champions for being able to deal with it in that way, but they don't realize how much trauma,
the knock-on effect, and
how they pass on cycles of
absolutely
poor parenting or poor support, you know, for family members. So that was that, and I scraped through my A levels. I was able to kind of get through to a uni by clearing. At this point, I still didn't know what I wanted to do.
I was going to ask you, what did you still? It's like you're just going with the flow.
If you ever met a coaster in your life, that was me. I was the best one, number one coaster. I just coasted through school and then coasted through A levels. However, actually, it's a little bit of a lie. By the time I finished my A levels, I had actually gone in full effect with my rapping career. So I was making music. And
was you?
That actually started in secondary school because of my English teacher, who gave me that space to start writing creatively. That turned into poetry, which turned into spoken word, which turned into rap. And so I had a decent following. I had mixtapes out, and you know, like I had, you know, comparisons to the likes of Mos Def, which I was proud of.
You actually look a bit like him, to be fair.
There you go. So I got that all the time, and I got a bit of Snoop when I was younger. So at that point, I probably did think I wanted to be a rapper, which wasn't kind of like a particular professional career or anything in mind. It was just, I want to be a rapper. So I went to uni really because my parents expected nothing less, not because I actually had an idea as to what I wanted to do. And I enjoyed studying law in college, doing my A levels, and I loved sociology as well. And I think I took English as well. So I loved sociology and law, and so I thought to myself, like, what subject at uni? This is whilst I'm going through clearing, by the way. I don't even know what uni I'm going to for sure, but I was thinking, like, what subject would I really, really like? I like law, I like sociology, and then criminology came up, and I was like, boom, that's what I'm going to do at uni. So I went to study criminology with sociology. No intention to get into anything related to that. just like the subject. So I'm just blowing 9,000 a year every. But I did love the subject.
Yeah.
And
you like the idea of it, right?
I just love the theory side of it, and I've always been into like Criminal Minds,
right?
you know, that's all me.
Yeah. All me. It's okay. I did the theory. I did the theology. It's okay. I understand.
So I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I qualified with a 2-1, and that probably was my first educational success. Surprisingly, at the age of 21, 22, a year behind all of my peers, qualifying with a 2-1 degree in criminology and sociology.
Fantastic.
Was my first proper like taste of like educational success, not my GCSEs or my A-levels, and that really kind of proved to me it was more important for me to realize that, oh wait, you can do this, like you are kind of academic.
Yeah.
And you know, in my family I was the first one to get a degree as well, so that was also quite a proud moment for myself.
But doing that, when did you have, I know you pushed yourself, was there anyone, you've had some great teachers by the sounds of it, but was there anyone that you would say still mentored you, even though you felt that you were the number one coaster? Was there anyone that you could say was that defining mentor behind your head, even when you still didn't know what you were going to do?
I didn't have like a consistent mentor. I always craved for one, so much so that I wish I had an older brother. Like I always used to think, I wish I had an older brother. That's how much I longed for someone to kind of just be able to latch onto, to learn from, to be around. But I did have someone maybe between the ages of like 14 to like 16. He was my youth pastor at the church I used to attend.
Yeah.
And without realizing, he probably was the most significant and consistent role model I had growing up as a teenager. He was a white guy from, was it Nottingham? He might have been even somewhere more country than that. He's gonna, if he ever sees this, he's gonna never forgive me. No, Scarborough.
Oh, right, okay.
He was from Scarborough.
Big difference from Nottingham, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know where I got Nottingham from. He was from Scarborough. I feel like maybe he supported Nottingham Forest. I can't remember. I'm gonna check it after. But he was from Scarborough, so he had an accent. You know, in many ways, he wasn't the typical role model for me. He didn't, you know, relate to me in terms of my actual experiences growing up in East London or whatever it was. But he was just a man of integrity. Always tried to do the right thing, and obviously being a youth pastor at the church, he was overseeing the young people, and he did a great job of doing that. You know, he protected us emotionally, physically. I saw a lot of London because of him, because we were traveling to different events, concerts, youth events, and he was always just a guy, you know. And so looking back, he actually was someone that if I could kind of like single out one person that really just showed me what it's like to be a man, to be consistent in that, and to do so in a positive way, it was him. His name is James Hunter. He's a brilliant guy, and but he wasn't someone that I would say mentored me through my.
But it significantly had an effect on your life, and I'm gonna come. We're gonna come back to him, and I'm gonna tell you why I'm gonna come back to him a bit later, because you've got this wonderful career. Well, you haven't got the career. You've just got the subjects. You've got the 2-1, and here you are. But you still played football and were still rapping in between all of this, weren't you?
Yeah. So throughout college, I was still rapping. The goal was still, you know, keep putting out videos, keep putting out mixtapes. I'd actually joined like a group whilst I was at uni. I was the rapper, and then I think I had 2 other singers.
What were you called? Oh my God, it can't be that long, Manny.
No, this just goes to show how bad my memory is. Because once I remember like my you know, the guys I was doing it with, my mates. It was a guy called Aaron and another guy called Angelo. It was a short stint, but we had like a manager and everything. And
wow.
We was traveling to uni and stuff like that. So we created a little buzz, but I think it wasn't really completely my kind of like style or flow in terms of like where they were trying to like channel us to go into. It was very kind of like poppy, and the beats and stuff started to be very kind of poppy. Very much like a traditional kind of like hip hop rapper. I just, you know, so, give me a beat, a Mos Def beat, a J.
You're good. I'm probably going to hold you to that to probably try and throw it. Oh, my hand's a bit white there. So to the light. I'm going to ask you this. When was the turning point that you said to yourself, okay, here I am. I didn't know I was going to go into criminology or law. But when was the turning point that you said, I want to make a difference and I'm going to become a teacher?
So that came after uni.
Yes, I would have thought so. Yeah.
So when I left uni, again, no idea what I was going to do. So if I qualified in July 2012, I think it was, I spent the next 2 or 3 months trying to figure out what I was going to do. Literally had no idea. I felt like I was starting from the drawing board, like searching what am I going to do. And I was fortunate that a guy in my neighborhood, his son played football. He just approached me one time and said, if you want to kind of get into coaching, I know a guy that's got a coaching company. All you got to do is sign up with them, and then he'll just send you out to schools, and you'll be able to do some coaching. It's just an hour here lunchtime, an hour here after school. So long story short, I joined this. I got my qualification, multi-sports coach. Didn't think it was what I was going to do with my career, but at least I was kind of making some type of money. Not a lot of money at all, by the way, as in I was literally working 2 hours in the day for a week. Sometimes not even the whole week. So I was working in schools. That's where they positioned me. They put me in schools. I was working in 2 schools in Tower Hamlets. And in one of those schools, I was doing a lunchtime club, football club. And I loved it there. I built such a great rapport with the children. The staff would come into the cage and, we'd be talking and they'd play football with me. And so I thought to myself, I really, really like it here. So I approached the head teacher of that school and I just said, listen, can I just get some work experience? I didn't even want to get paid. I wasn't even ambitious at the time. I just said that I just want to get some experience. I'm already here. I come in at 12. I don't mind coming in 9 and being here till 12 just to kind of help out with some of the young children. She said, you know what? There's a guy that's leaving on paternity leave. He's just had a child. He's leaving for 2 weeks. How about you go to an agency, you sign up, and then that way you can get paid for the 2 weeks that you're going to be here for. Long story short, I did the 2 weeks. The 2 weeks turned into 3 months till the end of the term. And then the 3 months turned into 5 years.
Whoa!
Working in the school.
So was you being the teacher? Was you a supply teacher's assistant, right?
So I started off. So that 2 week stint was me working as a one-to-one for a child with autism, severe autism. As in he couldn't speak. He might poo himself and start playing with the poo. And I'd never worked.
I was gonna say, yeah. How did you manage that?
I managed it, I guess. I think that's when I realized that, oh wait, like I've got it within me to kind of like work with children. I just did it. It's what they gave me, and I just said, okay, cool. And I was able to build, a relatively decent relationship with this child. But the reality of it is the child shouldn't have been in that school. He needed to be in an actual autistic. Like looking back at it now with my SEN hat on, he needed to be in a proper provision. He was, he wasn't getting the best kind of
care.
Provision. Yeah. I mean, the school had his best interest at heart, but he needed to be somewhere where they could really kind of cater for his needs. So anyway, once that was done, towards the end of that term, I was then asked to be a one-to-one for a child who had behavior difficulties and ADHD. Young black boy, Caribbean boy, and I was warned before I got him that he was very, very difficult, very challenging, spends most of his time outside of the classroom. I think he was in year 5 at the time, blah, blah, blah. The report or the profile that was given me of him was kind of like, okay, let's see, this is going to be a roller coaster. And I met this young man, beautiful kid, like a heart of gold, loved football, so we kind of hit it off immediately. And, really just keeping that story real short, he left school with the stats that they didn't think he would make in both English, Maths and Science. We spent 2 years together, so I did year 5 with him and then year 6 with him. At the time, I was also now the football coach. I was the main lead football coach for the whole school, so I was taking them on football tournaments and we were winning in the borough. And so it was within that time, I guess somewhere probably maybe after the first year, I realized, what education is for me. And so slowly what was happening was the place that I went. So when I started there, I initially started there thinking to myself, the money I'm about to make now, this is going to source my wonderful rap career.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
That was genuine. It's funny now, but that's my plan. I went in there thinking, you know what, I like this part-time job. This is just paying for studio time. I need to make it as a and then what slowly started to happen was, because of my relationship with the young people, the impact I was having, you know, I was then taking on certain roles, like for example, covering classes. So I was doing things that were way beyond what I expected of myself. I then started to realize that, you know what, not only is education for me, in the back of my mind, the whole music thing just slowly started to kind of, I wasn't even thinking about it. I just wasn't doing music. I was now fully kind of into education. So it was only until that young boy left, and then because I was doing a lot of covering of lessons and teaching and whatever, and people had seen me teach, I think I was approached by the head teacher at the time, a lovely lady who I've got a lot of respect for. She kind of said to me, you know, Manny, you can be a teacher. I said, absolutely not. She said, no, Manny, like, think about it seriously, you could be a teacher. And at the time, I used to think, these guys are stressed. Like, are they even getting paid well enough to be under this stress? I don't mind doing my football club, having my relationship with these kids, and going home. But as you can imagine, you know, as a TA at the time, I was living at home, so I was all right, but you're not making particularly great money. Again, I wasn't massively ambitious because I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. So all I was thinking was, nah, I'm all right. They might be on 10, 15K more than me, but they're looking haggard. I don't want that for myself. Nah, I don't want to do it. And then they kind of convinced me to consider it. So I thought, okay, you know what, cool. If I'm going to work in education, I want to work with secondary children. I just assumed that secondary students would be the age group that I could work with. And so I applied for 2 secondary schools, like through the teachers training program thing. I think you got 3 places you can apply for. The first 2, they declined my offer. And so the last one was a primary training program. And so I thought, let me just try this one then, I guess. And I got in. And funny enough, my head teacher at my school was actually on the interview board for my training program.
Wow.
So when the interview happened and I passed it, she kind of got first dibs and said,
I want him
coming back. So I did my teacher's training there, which was a very difficult year. It was a very difficult year because I think for the first time I really kind of had to like show resilience. It was a difficult year because, one, the type of training program that I did, you're kind of thrown into the deep end. It's not like you go back to uni and you study the theory of education and then you kind of slowly do placements over a 3-year period. This is like a 1-year intense course. You start off just learning. After 6 weeks, you're expected to be doing 25% of that timetable. Of a teaching timetable. By Christmas, 50%. By spring, 75%, possibly teaching the whole time.
And you're actually teaching. It's not like you're in. It's not an online course. You're actually with the children.
I was a teaching assistant in July, covering lessons, but you know, not a teacher. And by October, I was expected to be teaching year 5 class of like maths, English, whatever. But with that said, it was probably the best learning experience for me. I probably did learn better that way. I think there was just certain things around that experience that didn't help. So for example, the mentor I was given, we had a good relationship personally, but she wasn't the best mentor for me. She was too preoccupied and just didn't really kind of have that level of patience or empathy for someone who had
experience.
And I was a TA within the school, so the dynamics was quite difficult because children would refer to me as Manny, as a TA, but then there was this really big thing that the school had where you had to kind of call teaching staff by their last name. So children were kind of like, you know, oh, hi Manny, and then like they'd be getting corrected, no, it's Mr. Awoyelu, and I'm like, yeah. So even just kind of like the difference in relationship with the students,
the transition from it all.
It wasn't the same, and I struggled with that. So by January, which is like halfway through that training year, I said to the uni facilitator, I'm done. Forget this. I don't want to do this no more. I wasn't getting much support from my mentor. I was doubting myself. I started thinking to myself, I didn't want to do this in the first place. I let people convince me that this is a great idea. It's not. And fortunately, the placement that I was in for January, they placed me with a really, really good teacher. She was a newly qualified teacher herself, but she's probably one of the best teachers I've ever seen. And the school itself was a great school. And that's where I really learned that actually sometimes it's not your ability or your capabilities as a teacher. Sometimes it's just where you are.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just who
Yeah.
you are. You get it? That makes a massive
Yeah.
difference. So I had a fantastic 6 weeks placement where I grew and developed as a teacher, and then my self-confidence was like up again. So when I returned back to my original school, I went back with a bit more kind of self-confidence and, you know, more motivation to do well. It still wasn't great, so I kind of like almost just like, you know, when you're just getting over the line. That's how it was for me. But the experience was so bad that even when I qualified as a teacher, I was like, no way in hell am I going back to do my newly qualified teachers year. I said, no way. I was in my head thinking, so what other things can I do as a teacher with this teacher's qualification? I looked into educational psychology. I looked into, you know, all sorts. And so what I did instead of rushing into my my newly qualified teachers year, I just said to the school, thank you for the offer, but no, I'm going to decline. Can I just do a year as a cover teacher? I know it's not going to be the same money as being a qualified teacher. I'm fine with that. I just need to find myself. Yeah. And so I did that. I did the first maybe 9 months in the school as a cover teacher. And then very quickly I started feeling very unfulfilled. I started feeling like actually I am better than what I was doing. You know, I was doing kind of just like very low level stuff.
Because you were telling yourself that.
You've actually done.
You were telling yourself that, wasn't you?
You know, like I convinced myself I wasn't good enough to be a teacher, so I was kind of almost like taking a step back to do the stuff I was doing as a TA, you know, football clubs, all that kind of stuff. But very quickly I realized you can do more than this. But what I didn't want to do is rush into a school where if it was a bad experience, I know myself, I would have left the industry. I would have left that industry completely.
Yes.
If I had bad experience. So I basically started to research the type of things that I would want to get into, like the type of schools I'd want to get into. And one member of staff said, you know, Manny, we were sitting in the staff room, she said, Manny, the way you are with those kids, great. I'm just thinking you were so good with Jess, you were so good with this child. You know, those kind of kids need you. And she was planting a seed in my head because it was her saying that made me think, it's true. These disadvantaged or vulnerable children or children that have been written off, they're the ones that I've had the most success with.
Yeah.
And they're the ones I'm most passionate about. So then I started looking for every single alternative provision that I could find in London, and I emailed all of them. And only one school got back to me, and the head teacher of the primary department, she emailed me back and just said, oh, thank you for getting in touch. We'd love for you to come and visit. So I went to visit the school. My school at the time gave me permission. I traveled to the school and I walked through the doors, and the first thing I saw, I was like, interesting. The secondary school head teacher was actually, he was restraining a child because the child had maybe something had happened. You will learn that that's quite normal in the type of school that he was restraining a child, and the child's trying to spit back at him, and he's yelling, he's a paedophile, don't come here. And I was like, interesting. Like nothing felt too abnormal. I wasn't put off. I was just like, okay. And then I carried on walking through the corridor, and by the end of the day, after spending like some time in the classroom, I was like, I love it here. This is the kind of place I would want to work. So I emailed the head teacher. I said, you know what, thank you for having me today. It was a great experience. And she said, you know what, we loved having you there. The teachers are talking about you. If I was to offer you a job here, you know, kind of informally, would you take it? And I said, informally, I would love to take it. So we kind of like fleshed out some stuff between my school and her school, and you know, the head teachers agreed to let me leave a little bit early that year. So I left in June. And so I spent 6 weeks kind of just having like a transition period where I was getting to know the school, the systems, so that I could prepare myself to do my newly qualified teachers year from September. And then the rest is history. I started in September 2016 as a newly qualified teacher. I completed that year, my first year as a newly qualified teacher in a special school, which is very unusual to even want to do that.
I was going to say.
But I knew what I wanted to do, man. When you know what you want to do and why you want to do it, to everyone else on the outside, it might seem crazy, but I knew that that's where my skills and my qualities were.
Yeah. And you start to make that difference. You started to make you that's where you knew your calling was, and you start to make 100%. The difference. Now, even though you've now gone into this school, you still didn't give up on the football, though. I know I keep coming back to sports. I just want people to know that you haven't given up on a lot of things. That you've implemented more things in that school.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I gave up on football at university.
Really?
As in, when I say I gave up on football, as in I gave up on playing to a very kind of competitive
That's right.
level. Like I played
That's right. That's correct.
But maybe after the first or second year, I think just distractions and uni life and stuff. It was just more like a leisure hobby thing as opposed to trying to play for a team at a competitive level like I always wanted to do. But
you've gone one better. You've decided to start an academy.
Yeah, so the academy started in 2014, which was a number of years, maybe 2 years after I left school. So I started that with one of my close friends, one of my school friends, who I went to primary school with, secondary school with, college with, and then in 2014 we set up a very successful football academy actually in Angel. And that ran for 4 years and came to its natural end. And so that's what I loved about that, because although I couldn't play football, as you know, many people that can't then play football professionally, they tend to go into coaching.
Right.
And so I will kind of channel my love for football and also for young people in setting up this football academy. And yeah, there were four great years of my life. And whilst I was doing that, Whilst I was doing that, funny enough, I think I might have actually been doing my teacher's training, qualified as a teacher, and then 2 years of my first year at my new school now. Those 4 years I was actually running a football academy simultaneously at the same time. So yeah, never give up on football, but from a professional point of view, yeah, that was that. I was actually more hopeful of becoming a musician, an artist, than I was being a footballer. Even an actor, I would have preferred to.
This is what I was about to say to you, because you still, all right, even though you're a teacher, these are the strings to your bow that still linger over you. You have an acting ability, and you've also still got your writing ability as a spoken word. And so they still sit there. It's not like you don't do them, because you also run a podcast. And I'm hoping I've got one of this is how I found you, because I'm going to come to the Reach Out project, and I saw you put this up. Let's see if I can bring it up, because I thought, wait a minute.
Sow your seed. What does that mean? Sowing your seed is really just thinking about how you can invest in yourself and invest in other people. So what are some examples of how you could sow your seed? Well,
here we go.
People, I think, is probably one of the most important ones.
Don't know if anyone can hear.
Can you invest in other people? Do you invest in other people? For instance, if you're a parent, how do you invest in your child's future? A perfect example is obviously if you're reading with your child every single day, you're almost guaranteeing that your child will become a better reader, or if not a fluent reader. You're depositing a seed there of education in their life. Another example.
I'm going to bring it right
sow
back.
Sow your seed. What does that mean? Sowing your seed is really just thinking about how you can invest in yourself and invest in other people. So what are some examples of how you could sow your seed? Well, people, I think, is probably one of the most important ones. Can you invest in other people? Do you invest in other people? For instance, if you're a parent, how do you invest in your child's future? A perfect example is obviously if you're reading with your child, you're almost guaranteeing that your child will become a better reader, or if not a fluent reader. You're depositing a seed there of education in their life. Another example is if you're an employer, an owner of a business, are you sending your employees on training programs? Are you thinking about how you can train them up? Because it would be for the benefit as well as your company as well as for that. So when you invest in other people, that is one of the best investments that you can make. Another example of an investment is time. How do you spend your time? How are you investing time into your own hobbies, into perfecting something that you're particularly good at. Using time is very important because time is that once you give it out, you can't necessarily get it. So how do you use your time? And the last one is money. That's the obvious one. How are you spending your money? How are you investing in yourself and investing in your future? Sometimes when you think about money, it's not necessarily about how you can make a profit, how you can sow a seed into someone's life just for the sake of future or better experience. I give you a perfect example. When you see a homeless person on the street, you give them £20. That £20 might not necessarily be a big deal to you. It might not even be a big deal. But if they're in that moment of need, you deposit in that £20 into their hands. You also deposit what you're doing actually. You're being generous. You're being generous. And in some ways, that actually goes a lot further than the money that you've given. So when you're thinking about how you deposit a seed into someone, through time, through money, it could also just be through being kind and from being encouraged. So think how are you depositing seeds for yourself and for other people around you?
I had to play that. I just had to play that. And that's how I found you. And you said, you sowed the seed. And then reading about you, knowing that you were a school teacher, the fact that you were trying to make a difference. And then you did another speech. Because that one, I guess, is the one that you use. You call it your Manny's conscience. Yeah. And that is beautiful. Yeah. And there's a lot more. And I'm going to give your handle to everybody at the end of this, because they need to tap into someone who has been there, knows. It's like, I'm not saying that you lost a direction, but my question that I'm going to put to you is this. The education in schools these days, which is going to bring me to the Reach Out project again, do you think there's enough help from the teachers to the students, especially young black? I try not to use colour because I think it's everywhere. But you've highlighted this. There's not many teachers out there that's going to put the time in like yourself. Do you think there's enough of them out there? And do you think they need assistance?
It's a difficult question to answer, because the real answer is that I don't know what kind of time people have to give to all of these children. I don't know what happens in every single school across the country. What I do know is what the statistics show me, and what I know from my own personal experience. And the statistics show me, and have told me for many, many years now, because it's something I've looked at for a while, that young black African Caribbean boys in particular, are being excluded year after year, and they are most likely to be excluded 4, 5, 6 times more likely than their white counterparts. They're also the lowest when it comes to ethnic groups in attainment and progress in terms of their qualifications by the end of secondary school. Not many of them are leaving with the necessary qualifications to then go on to do the A-levels, which then means a reduction in the amount of black African Caribbean children that are then going off to higher education, etc., etc. So as a teacher, I actually respect the profession and the job enough to be able to say, I believe teachers are trying. Are teachers trying as hard as me? In some cases, no, but there shouldn't be the expectation that they do, because I'm driven by injustice. I'm driven by the fact that I was failed. And many teachers that go into education go into it because they just want to teach. They don't know the experience that I've had. So I'm going in there with a mindset that the experience that I had, no child's ever going to experience that again as long as they're in my classroom, or as long as they're in my school, if I own my own school. But that same kind of passion and drive, you can't get it from every single teacher, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're trying. And so that's why I don't put the effort, I don't put the focus too much on individual teachers, because irrespective of race, the job is very difficult, and teachers try. The most influential teacher in my life was a white middle-aged lady, which also goes to show that when it's all said and done, race should not matter. It's more about the empathy, the quality of the quality of education you're given as a teacher, all of those things. But what we're seeing though is that something's not adding up, because if everyone's being empathetic, everyone's a great educator, a great teacher, why then certain groups across the country, year after year after year, for many, many decades, being failed. I don't think that's because there aren't enough teachers that don't care. I think that's a structural issue.
Yeah.
That's education system. Teachers go into the job sometimes not even aware of the system and what it kind of has to offer these young people, and they just automatically become a part of that problem. They inherit that problem, and sometimes they don't have the tools or the time or the care to
you just
make
said
a difference. And that's why you need black educators. That's the reason why you need black educators, because they know the experience, they know the pain, they know the struggle. And when there's only 2% of them of a whole teaching workforce, and then that same particular group are being failed in school, I don't think it takes a lot of mass to figure out that if you could increase the amount of black role models you see for these young people, we change the outcomes. And it's not just because they're a black body in the school, but more so because when you think about education, it's more about, it should be a wholesome approach. How do you educate them in terms of the academia side of things, but also as a person? And the difficulty is that in schools, young people don't see people that they can relate to, so they're not opening up. They're not trusted as adults. And on the flip side of that, some of them are actually experiencing marginalization,
Yes, absolutely.
So they're going to be disengaged from schools. So a part of the answer is to get more black educators, but even more importantly, we need to see more black senior leaders, because you can have a whole school of 20 black teachers, but if the senior leadership team all look like white men, or just not, there's no diversity in it at all, they are the ones that dictate the curriculum. They're the ones that dictate the policies that are getting children in trouble. They literally control and dictate that school's way of being. Not teacher in the classroom, unfortunately, which is why more black educators should strive to be in senior leadership. But even if they did so, when there's only 2% of them within the workforce, there's only going to be a certain amount of black senior leaders across the country anyway, which is why you need to get more people in the profession, but importantly, you need to then retain the ones that are already there. And that's another problem in education, the retention of teachers, especially black.
Do you think they give up?
If they've gone for
Do you think some of the black teachers, they give up? They just feel that I'm not getting anywhere with this. So, what's the point? But then
some of them don't make it to teachers, because remember I said in my training year, I was ready to quit. I had told everybody I'm quitting. I don't want to do it. And that was because of the way I was made to feel as an adult. I don't think it was necessarily a race issue, but the common denominator there was that it was a white female, again, not kind of giving me the respect, the time, the courtesy that I needed, even just as a human being, regardless of race. I wasn't getting that. So I almost left. And if I had left, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now.
Yes.
So all those people that even have that one little experience that haven't even made it into education system, it's tough. I've literally got someone in my Instagram DMs that just messaged me today. I'm going to respond to him, who said, I'm an NQT and I'm having a terrible time. What can I do? What can I do to help myself? Like, he's seen me as someone that maybe he could get some advice from. But that tells you that you still got people who are getting into the profession. That's a black male, by the way. That's what I'm shouting for. I'm advocating for that. And he's still feeling the kind of the brunt of like microaggressions and people kind of, speaking down on him, mistreating him. And he's probably going to think at the end of this,
then I might as well give up.
Might as well just walk, which is why it's important that then we see more of us there, because then we can create networks and communities within ourselves. And there are many great communities.
And you are in the position to do that though, Manny, because you have just, and I just want to put this out there, you have just had a piece written in The Guardian. Let me just put that up here. And you've just said why I teach. I know the impact a great teacher can have on a child. Why? Go on, tell us why.
Why? So like I said, my school exclusion was a very traumatic experience for myself and also for my family. And I essentially went into teaching making a vow that no child in my classroom would experience the same thing that I had experienced. And I went there driven by the idea that young people needed to have what I never had as a child. which was a black male role model, a black male primary school teacher, an advocate, someone that they can relate to, but someone that's going to champion them, someone that's going to fight for them. And you'd be surprised how much you have to fight for our black children in these school systems, even when people are unaware of what they're doing and how these actions are detrimental. Good people make questionable decisions that impact people's lives, and that's why it's such a delicate job, and young people are so delicate. They're like sponges, and especially when they're young. If you start to marginalize them and make them feel smaller than they are, if you don't start to show them and teach them that they are great, that their history is more than slavery, all of these things, they grow to have self-fulfilling prophecy that they're not as great as they might have thought they were, or they're not great at all. And sometimes they need to see it. They can hear about it, but they need to see it, which is why I know that my role as a teacher in the classroom, it's great for them, because even at the very minimum, they're seeing me, someone that looks like them, talks like them. I came from the ends. I came from East Ham. I'm not from. And you get it. I'm not coming from Leeds and trying to tell you how life is.
You're in a city. You're here.
Same block as you guys. I look like the older brother. I might look like your dad, and I'm showing them that you can be a teacher. It's cool to be a teacher. It's alright to be a teacher. It's alright to be educated. Forget about even being a teacher. It's alright for you to leave school and have GCSEs, have A levels. There's more to life than having to trap. There's more to life than wanting to go into football or to music, because we've kind of almost been pushed down that avenue, myself included. All I thought about was the entertainment industry, because I didn't see myself or believe that I could be anything more than that. And so young people, you ask them now, what do you want to be?
Right?
What do you want to
oh
be?
My God. You took the words right out my mouth. Do you find that the youths, when you speak to them, and that the only ambition that they have is, it's either I'm going to be a grime artist, or I'm going to be a singer, or I'm going to be, there's nothing academic that they're saying they want to do. And I'm not saying that's for everybody, no. Do not get me wrong, but when I had to go into a school, a Goldsmith College down in Camden, and I was mentoring down there for the day, and I swear to God, I couldn't believe when I asked that question, what do you want to do when you leave? I would say there was 17 people in that class. All the boys wanted to be a rapper, apart from one who wanted to be a graphic designer. And the girls wanted to either be, there was not a teacher, she wanted to be a singer. The other girl decided she wanted to be a beautician. And I left feeling totally demoralized. And I thought, this can't be it. This can't be it. You cannot tell me that you all want to be musicians. And the only advice I remember leaving, and I said, there was one guy going, but yeah, miss, he goes, trust me, I've got lyrics for days, And I said, so have I. I said, I've got lyrics for days. But I tell you something, lyrics for days does not pay the bills.
That's what I'm saying. For some it does.
Not everybody.
But not everyone.
I said, get a job, go get an apprenticeship. Get something behind you that when you do decide to make it in the music industry, or you become a dancer, a rapper, a beautician, you've got something to fall back on. Something that you can say, I studied, I got this, I've got, it doesn't have to be a degree, but you've got something that you can fall back on and still get a job in the wide world. And I'm glad you've just pinpointed something that I saw. And this is still going on. This is 6 years ago.
Still going on. Yeah, it's still going on. And again, part of that is because you can't be what you don't see. If many of these young people come from families, and it's not always the case, but if they come from families where, like myself, I was the first one to receive a degree, and it wasn't even completely intentional. First one to get into a professional kind of career as the eldest of my family. So I didn't see what it was like to be a professional growing up. I didn't see what it was like to kind of, work in a certain job or be in a certain area. So your experiences growing up.
It does.
and aspiration and the ambition of your family also
Absolutely.
have a part to play in that. I was fortunate that my parents were ambitious and aspirational for me, even if I weren't. But if you've got families that aren't aspirational or ambitious for their children, what they go on to do after school doesn't really matter. Like you literally get families that haven't really thought about what their child could possibly do after. Some of them don't even care. Some of them don't know how to navigate that. But I always say, especially for the black community, like, you have to be completely engaged in your young people, and you need to know what it is that they're up to. Because even if you don't necessarily have the life experience, you haven't got the qualifications, you haven't got the experience or the job that you might want for your child, you need to start challenging those things in your child. Start listening to them, start thinking about what their strengths are. And don't get me wrong, it's important for us to qualify from school, because at the end of the day, the game is that you need to leave with GCSEs, you need to leave with A levels to get into higher education. That's just the game. But we know that you could do all that process and leave, like myself, and you don't leave with a job. You don't even know what career you're going to get into. So it's not necessarily that education is the height of success in terms of getting all of these qualifications. But like you said, give yourself a chance. Once you've got the GCSEs, if you want to go on to be a plumber or be an electrician, or you want to go on to then set up your own business or whatever, go and do that. But then where the school's part in that is, how does the school channel those interests, those love, so that desire for those subjects? How do they cultivate those skills? How do they kind of push them towards this direction? They don't.
But I thought they did. Isn't it that in the schools these days that they're supposed to be having like not pastoral care? It's where they send the children out to have work experience. I remember that's what we used to have. Are you saying that all that is null and void now, where it's just education, you do your GCSEs and you're out the door? It can't. That's ridiculous. Because there has to be someone that tells you that this is what the wide world looks like. So you need to. There's got to be someone. There has to be a way that we can train the teachers and say.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a push recently. There's been a push from the Department of Education for careers to be focused within.
It's needed.
But all of these things, you have to remember, a lot of them are tick box activities, because when it's all said and done, the leaders of these schools still kind of dictate whether it happens or not, or how well it happens. So you can say we're focusing on careers within our school throughout the whole school, but no one's holding you accountable. So you might, like, there could be year 11s that are still leaving and being put on level 3 entry programs, or multi-skills courses, because really no one's really putting the time or effort from when they were maybe year 7, from maybe when they were in year 7 or year 8, to basically say, these are your options, by the way. These are all the different careers you can get into. Even more importantly, these are all the black and Asian people that are in these professions. So you can actually realize that
role models.
People that look like you are holding up spaces in these fields. This is what you need to do to get there, and we're going to help you. We're going to cultivate your skills. We're going to help you with your qualifications. We're going to give you the interview experience. We're going to let you travel to those universities to see for yourself what it's like to be at uni. We're going to travel to colleges. None of that. And when I was in school, we at least had.
That's what I mean.
Even if it was 2 weeks work experience. I learned maybe not a lot about that particular profession, but I knew what it meant to wake up early, to go to work, to come back home tired and be, this is what all these adults are doing. But I had that. In schools now, work experience doesn't happen. And remember, I run a charity program, so we work in a school as well as my own personal experience as a teacher, where the work experience doesn't exist. For our charity project, we work in other schools, and they don't do work experience. We provide the work experience for those children.
You run this charity group, the Reach Out Project. Am I correct?
Yes.
Can you give me a bit? I've got some words here. I'm not going to read them out because the Reach Out Project was founded in 2017, and it says by friends Lillian and Michaela and yourself. Give me a brief synopsis. What is the Reach Out Project?
So, Reach Out Project, in 30 seconds, is a charity program that was set up by my two lovely partners, Michaela and Lillian. They did it in 2017 when they realized that spaces, for example, like concerts for like artists like Stormzy, for instance, weren't being occupied by people that look like him. They were seeing young people outside of Brixton basically waiting outside to see the artist come out, but they couldn't afford to actually go in and have that experience. So they, had this idea to be able to kind of provide this opportunity for young people so that they could go into these spaces and experience, their favorite artists or whatever. Because we know that obviously finances is the reason why these young people can't afford those experiences. So they approached the school and this is not.
I don't care. Just speak it into existence. I want to hear it all.
I have to say the whole story because the reason why it started is really homegrown.
Yes.
It is a grassroots. It's not just clarity that's just kind of been plucked out of the air. But they approached the school and just said, we have this idea. We want to take some of your kind of like maybe disengaged students and we want to give them an opportunity to basically progress in school from the incentive of being able to go to these places that they might not necessarily afford to go, and we'll just cover it. That's all we're asking for. So that kind of organically developed into a mentoring program because these young people latched on to Lillian and Michaela and realized that, people that look like us are advocating for us. You've come from your home to come into our school to offer us mentoring, to take us on trips, to pay for our food, to do all these lovely things that maybe their families can't do or don't do, or that the school can't necessarily do. And so whilst this was all happening, Lillian and Michaela would often kind of come to me for me to consult with them on how to just kind of grow and develop the program, how to liaise with the school, etc., coming from a school background. And in 2018, they asked for me to join them as a director, and I gladly said yes because it was something I was
fabulous.
Proud of. And so in 2018, I joined them as a director, and I believe in 2019 we then became an official community interest company. And so since then we've been sponsored by Ian Wright.
Yes, I saw that.
Currently,
yes.
Stormzy's actually a massive sponsor of us from the very beginning. Used to provide transport for all of our boys to get to the concerts from the very beginning. So big up Stormzy. The Cadet Trust as well are massive sponsors and supporters of us. And recently we've had Gap as well kind of support us and advertise our stuff within their stores. So, but in brief, the program is a mentoring program for young boys who have been disengaged from school, who are likely to be excluded or possibly be groomed for gangs. And so as mentoring program, we offer one-to-one and group mentoring. We also take them on trips, like I said, to football stadiums, to football matches, concerts, trampolining, festivals, you name it. We go on a trip about at least once a month. We go on a trip. And then another thing that we do, which is something I'm quite passionate about, as I said, is aside from the trips that we might do to universities, for instance, and to colleges, we kind of are like the bridge between the working world and school. So we facilitate and arrange work experience and workshops with companies like KPMG, Facebook, ITV, and we kind of bridge that gap. So what happens, which is probably my favorite thing about the program, is that our young people will go on work experience or do a workshop at the actual offices of
fantastic
KPMG, HSBC, Facebook. The people that are leading these sessions are actually black people, so it'll be someone that more often than not it'll be a black person that's within that industry, within that company, that's now leading this workshop, which is really, really important that the boys can see that.
Again, a role model.
He came from Croydon. He came from Croydon. He came from Beckham, and he's in HSBC. It's not abnormal. So they see that, and then what's beautiful about it is that what's happened a number of times is they will because they're great kids, they will connect with someone within that company, and that person will say, when you're 16, just send me an application. I remember you. And so we've seen that happen.
Love it.
We recently had 3 of our boys go to ITV.
Oh wow! Okay.
Experience. I contacted this time, and we went to ITV for 3 days, and by the 3rd day they were pitching ideas for Love Island projects to executives and lead members within the branding team.
Fantastic.
And even after, emailed and said, those young boys that you've had, they were fantastic. We've got an apprenticeship program starting in August, please let us know what we can do to ensure that they get onto those programs. We'd love to have them back when they're of the right age. That's how the world happens. It's networks, it's people. And can I just say that one of those boys, the one that shone probably the most in my opinion, he wasn't even in full-time education. He'd been excluded from school. He was actually in a part-time provision. And prior to that experience, he didn't even want to go to that ITV thing. He actually said, I don't want to go. And my partner, Lillian, had to convince him to go. He was the one that excelled and shone and left there saying, with his do-rag on, I'm going to come back there and work in ITV. And, we've had the person that was in charge of that day literally in contact with us ever since saying, I spoke recently to, so-and-so, and he emailed me and I said to him, we're still waiting for your form. That's how it happens, and these are the things that we never had when we were younger, which is why we exist. To kind of be a unfortunately to a problem that unfortunately we only exist because there is a problem, but the solution is really to take these young boys out of the situations, the environments that they're from, and let them see a world beyond what they're used to. Let them see a world beyond corridors, beyond top. And that literally births aspirations, or at least motivates those that already had a plan, knew what they wanted to do. Now they're in this space and they've seen it for themselves. They're like, okay, cool. How many GCSEs do I need to get there? What do I need to do next?
Yeah.
Let's go. And we're to help them and support
you plant the seed. You plant the seed. Yeah. Manny, I was going to ask you this. How do you find in lockdown trying to teach, and I'm sure, amongst your own staff and other teachers, because obviously there is a network of you guys, teaching online to the kids, still having to, I like the way you just turn your face like me. Like, that must be difficult, because you still got to try to engage those children. And, we're listening to the news where people are saying they don't have laptops, they don't have, mobile phones. Is education come to that everything is literally technology? That the basics have gone out the window?
The answer is yes, but I have to be honest. That's not my experience, because I'm teaching in school. I'm in the jungle every day. I'm not teaching from home. I have no choice. The government said special schools must remain open. So if I'm being honest, my school's been open from the very beginning. Since March. They've been open, and so I wasn't actually at work for the first couple of months of the pandemic because my wife was pregnant with my daughter. And when my daughter was born in July, I wasn't able to come back to work in September. But my colleagues have all been. Thank you. My colleagues have all been at work. We've been, anyone that teaches in a special school, most of them are still in the school, because, as you know, children that are vulnerable or are children of key workers, remain in school. So for me, school has kind of looked as normal as it can be, aside from the whole social distancing and people having to wear masks and doing tests 2 or 3 days in a week. I'm still in school teaching it my preferred way. I did have to do it for a week when we had a COVID case in my school where someone tested positive. So because I was in contact with that person, I did have to isolate. So for 5 days, I did the remote learning. And let's just say I was happy it was only the 5 days.
In what way? Was it that difficult?
It's not even that it was that difficult. I just think, so with a bit of context, the children that I teach, they have social, emotional, mental health issues, but many of them also have additional learning needs. So they might have dyslexia or autism or ADHD. Can you imagine trying to teach 8 children with different needs on a Zoom call? I want to say it's impossible. They did really, really well, but that was in the context of it being for a week, and with parents being in the background able to help wherever they could. I had one child that was on the camera, and I'm waiting for him to start, and I'm noticing that he's dancing in the background, doing like a train. I had to just close that camera straight away and say, "Sorry, guys." So and I messaged my colleague. I was like, "You need to call Sammy right now."
Oh my god.
tell them to sort it out. So, by the time we got to Friday, I was like, I need to be back in school.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh.
But I can imagine, because of that week alone, I can imagine how difficult it is to, I've got a network of teachers around me. Many of them are, they're struggling because, teaching is meant to be face to face.
And it's a massive burden for them because it's different. It's a big burden.
Different, yeah. Many of them working like late hours, because teaching online is very different from teaching in person. And if you still got to do the marking and all those other kind of like little stuff that, make up time in your teaching, I don't know, maybe that's subjective. For some people, I know it's not easier to then try and do all of that as well as then teaching online. And I think it's even more difficult if you're a secondary teacher because you're teaching different groups. Same subject, you're teaching year group, and you got to kind of have them ready, and then you got some children with no camera in the background. And
it's difficult.
I can't imagine.
It must be really difficult. Experience. What would you say? Before we, I know we've got to get out of here, and I could speak to you all day. As a matter of fact, I didn't even say anything. It was just really great for you to just speak your truth. It's nice when I have someone that comes on. I said to you earlier, I've got so much questions. I don't need to. It's effortless. That's just the beauty of you. That's the thing. What would you say to
you make it
what would you say to your younger self when you was at school to who you are now? Because things are so different. Let's take COVID out of this. Going to school then and to who you are now, what advice would you give to your younger self?
That is a very, very good question. What would I say to you?
I stumped you.
What would I say to my troublesome, inquisitive self?
Look at it like I mean, okay, that I'd like to think, well, I know this will go out there. I want the youth to see this, that you do not give up.
I think it's going to have to be along the lines. It's going to be very cliche, but it's going to have to be something kind of whatever they said you couldn't do.
Hey, love that. Whatever they said you couldn't do.
Nothing could stop you. I mean, I didn't qualify with the necessary grades to do any profession, any serious profession. I didn't leave with 5 GCSEs. I didn't really pass all my A levels. I made it to uni. And even at the age of 18, I was still able to then use the next 3 years to kind of like push myself to make something, because at the end of the day, if it wasn't for that degree, I wouldn't be able to then go on to do a teacher's training program. You need a degree to do that. So, that one little bit of success that I experienced at 18, the years before that, don't even have to have too much regrets. It was what it was, but my life is starting from here. Everything they said I couldn't do. I mean, like, it's very cliche, but if you said to any of my teachers when I was in school, you hear people say it all the time, but from primary to secondary, if you said to any of them, Emmanuel is going to be a school teacher, he's going to be a Senko, one day he's going to be a head teacher, then he's going to run his own schools and show people how to run schools.
No way.
Shut the front. Let's just get out.
Thank God he didn't swear. I thought, oh God, don't swear.
I would have said the same thing because one, I didn't have any intentions to do so, but I had no ambition for my life. And as far as I was concerned, what they were saying about me, which was that I was a boy with much potential, but I wasn't fulfilling it, that became my reality. So I didn't leave school thinking, whatever it is I want to do, I'm going to do this and do that. No, I was fortunate that I coasted enough to a place where I was able to just cross the line, just get to uni and then leave with a degree that then set me up for whatever it is I'm going to do now. For me, I believe in God, so I just feel like every one of my experiences set me up for what I am today, because I wouldn't have the passion or the desire to to do what I do. I wouldn't have the desire to be the best teacher that I can be, the best Senko that I can be, to be a great head teacher one day, if it wasn't for the fact that someone wrote me off once. And sometimes it's negative experiences that basically push people to
there you, that's it, that you just said it.
Failures are sometimes the birthing story of your next bit of success. So that's probably what I would say to myself. Whatever they said you can't do, you can do it, and treat every failure as a part of your testimony, because that's what happened. My failures became my testimony. It became, it's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing today now. If I did well in school, who knows what I'd be doing now, because I don't think I would have chosen to be a teacher by choice. I still didn't choose to be a teacher, but
I was going to say that's your journey. That's your journey.
Yeah.
And that's
no regrets whatsoever. I wouldn't go and change anything. I don't think.
So I think I'm good. What I'm going to leave. I was going to ask you, well, what pearl of wisdom would you give to the youths out there? But you've just said it. You've literally just said to them that I don't know if I can coin it. Whatever you believe of yourself today is not exactly going to be your future.
Yes. Particularly if it's something that other people have said about you.
Yeah. Take what someone says about you and run with it and prove them wrong. Use it as a challenge. Before I go, it's been a wonderful conversation, and as I said before, thank you so much for sharing your time. And as you can't wait for the last day tomorrow to have that little break from the school. Can you anyone you want to give a shout out to, and also if anybody wants to get in touch with you regarding the Reach Out project, how do they get hold of you?
Easy place to get in touch with me is my Instagram. It's quite easy because I've got the same handle everywhere. So Instagram, Manny Awoyelu, Twitter, Manny Awoyelu. And I think you can access me through my email if you go onto my Instagram.
That's correct.
I've got an email button that you can. And in terms of shout outs, just anyone that's living out their purpose, because when I watch other people be great in what they're supposed to do, it inspires me, and that's irrespective of whatever industry they're in. So if someone running a business but they're doing the best at that, that inspires me. So I think the people around me that are doing great stuff, like I said, Goodman Factory, one of my closest friends, he set that up.
I meant to ask you about them. They've got the Goodman Factory. Can you just give a little brief synopsis about them before we go?
So Goodman Factory is a beard grooming company. So they kind of specialize in grooming products for men. My good friend has set that up. Two of them have set that up actually. It's a growing community, and we also have a podcast. So Goodman Factory on YouTube, which is a growing community at the moment. We
great podcast
on many different issues.
Fantastic.
Family, education, investments, whatever it is. So go check them out. But I'm gonna plug the Goodman Factory because they are doing some.
I'm just gonna play this. I know we said it earlier, but just a little bit of this.
What we're doing instead is we're communicating and engaging with other people on Twitter with you, on Instagram, as opposed to actually kind of embracing the moment that you're having now. The moment that you're having now. So that's why when I said it makes you antisocial. That's why when I said it makes you in that very moment, it's more like in that very moment, you're not being sociable, antisocial. But it's because somewhere else you're being. But it's because somewhere else you're being. You're hypersocial.
I think it's an interesting thing. I think it's an interesting thing I've been thinking about in terms. One thing I've been thinking about in terms of how that changed.
The Good Man Factory podcast. People, you need to check these guys out. They pearls of wisdom. I just love the pearls of wisdom. The fact that you're reaching and what I do like, even though you're saying it's about grooming the men's beard, it's reaching out to men who don't want to share, letting people know that you can share your emotions, your feelings, your thought process. You don't need to hold back on anything. It's a way of communicating and understanding yourself. Now, women have got so many podcasts because women share, and men tend to clam up. And what I do find with the Goodman Factory, and there's a few others that are coming up, is that men are actually saying, I'm going to kick that taboo to the curb. I am going to speak my truth. And a group of you get together and you literally, you make us realize that there are good men out there. Not everybody's a road man. Do you understand? So there's some good, intellectual, intelligent, deep, passionate black men out there. And it is beautiful to listen to. So for everyone, try and check out Goodman Factory Podcast. Manny, it's been an absolute dream. I know I said it was going to be an hour, but we did an hour and a half. Sorry.
That's fine. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and
that's what I'm trying to say to you. It's absolutely been a pleasure. Big love to your wife and to your little one. It wasn't about them, and I do try not to put people's family on. It's it's not fair, but just want to tell them enough love and staying safe. And let's continue to keep, communicating. Hopefully out of COVID, we can go back down the line and see where we are in 6-7 months' time. But in the meantime, thank you. God bless you to you and your family. And totally. And everybody else, please give up a big love to Emmanuel Awoyelu.
No, thank you. You deserve all the praise.
No, thank you. And I'll catch up with you on the flip side while I'll tell everybody good night. But God bless you, and I'll call you back and I'll speak to you shortly. Thank you again. God bless.
No worries.
Woohoo! Oh my God. Oh, I love that when the little camera just disintegrates just there. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that podcast show, because it's poignant of what's going on today in the world with, having to homeschool. And I know we were saying, the statistics about black people, but I have to speak about my own. It's what's going on. It is absolutely atrocious. And I want to say to the youths out there that, I'm hearing about suicide within our own community. I can't say my own community, within the black fraternity, but it's not just black, it's everybody. Everyone is suffering. So I hope today's show brought some light, show that it's not all doom and gloom out there. And join me again next week, Thursday. I've got a beautiful young lady coming on to deal with meditation, self-awareness. She's really cute too. Miss Karine Sao is joining me next week. She has her own program on Sky TV, dealing with the Feel Good Factor TV. So Karine is going to join us next week to talk about all the things that we need to do to feel good about ourselves. In the meantime, thank you for joining me today on Standing in My Truth. I am going to go and get my glasses on because these lights are about to kill me. Have a good evening. God bless.